Hi, welcome to the course. My name is Dennis Chow. I'm the course author and your instructor today for Mastering Network Intrusion Defense. Let's get started. Now, we'll be hands on with detection engineering. We're going to leverage Suricata, PCAP forensics, and automation. The most important thing that you get out of this course is that you're going to learn how to utilize detection engineering concepts utilizing the Suricata IPS engine, but you'll also learn the foundations of PCAP forensics, how to create signatures, and actually automate the rest of your enterprise deployments using the Suricata IPS engine. Now, this course is divided into many different sections. Let's start covering them as we go. First, we'll start with packet captures and IDS processing. Here we'll learn the basics of PCAP concepts and intrusion analysis engines and how they actually work together. In section 2, we'll learn about forensic analysis and PCAP. So we'll do a deep dive in carving out indicators of compromise and indicators of attacks. We'll utilize those indicators for future state signatures. We'll use it for analysis. And this is how we'll use the precursors to creating signatures. In section 3, we'll utilize setting up Suricata and tuning. So we'll look at administrating the actual engine itself. We'll configure the objects and the information options, and we'll learn about how to utilize them in monitor and inline mode depending on your enterprise deployment needs. In section 4, we'll actually create the actual detections using Suricata style compatible rule sets. Now, some of these rule sets will utilize our IOCs and IOs that we learned from the previous sections, and some of it we'll learn about tuning and actually the concepts of streaming behind optimizing it for our resources per sensor. In section 5, we'll continue with testing our detections by creating unit tests and offensive payloads. So we'll figure out how to create the tests themselves against the packet capture traffic. We'll actually make sure that the alerts happen based on the signature tuning and Suricata itself. And then we'll join those together to ensure that those are actually working as expected. In section 6, we'll learn about the automations and extended use cases on how to scale deployments of your role sets. We'll figure out the responses and how to utilize CI/CD pipelines to actually make our detections more viable for a enterprise-wide setup. We'll close up with the section 7, which is really a course and my personal recommendations on how you can apply all these concepts to the further enterprise. Now, some prerequisites before we continue on this course. You should be an administrator or an analyst level with some IT or network concept experience. You don't have to be a programmer and you don't have to be an expert. However, this is recommended so you understand the concepts going forward. We won't be covering OSI model, and we won't be covering some of the basics behind connectivity and how connections function between packets. You should also have the ability to understand and read script logic. So while you don't have to be a programmer, understanding how the script logic operates and understanding how to read code is very beneficial in this course where you don't have to be a programmer, like I said, but it'll be helpful if you do understand some programming concepts and languages. You should have access to the internet. We'll be downloading different packages and making updates and changes to them and actually testing the live fire traffic and downloading additional information whenever possible. You might also be utilizing our GitHub repo for grabbing your lab files as well. You should also have local admin rights to your host. At minimum, have a local admin right to a Linux host or a Windows host with a local VM that you are capable of running an Ubuntu Linux-based process for. Your hypervisor should be able to run Ubuntu Linux or Debian version with a minimum of 4 vCPU, preferably 8 cores instead, minimum 4 gigabytes of memory, and 40 gigs of storage space free to actually deploy and install your VM instance. Finally, we'll have a GitHub free personal account. You do not have to have a paid edition to make utilization of the CI/CD pipelines using public repositories we'll use in our labs. Some additional information that we need to understand before we start. We will be utilizing malicious payload that may generate malware alerts on the system depending on how your configurations, especially endpoint antivirus and EDRs, are deployed. Please be sure to disable them if you're utilizing them in a production environment or put everything in a sandbox or VM instances whenever possible. We'll also discuss a little bit about cloud solutions and how you deploy a little bit differently based on our sensors and intrusion prevention engines, as well as our architecture, but you will not need cloud or cloud accounts for this lab. We also assume that you'll be able to install Ubuntu successfully on a local virtual machine or have access to a Debian Linux-based host. Any Linux-based host will do, but these two are the recommended flavors and distributions because of the file formats and the packages available for you. With that, let's go ahead and get started into our first section.